What's up, everybody? You've tuned in to Just Draws, the podcast that explores hot topics and various experiences among same-gender-loving Black men. In each episode, we offer raw, vulnerable, and stripped-down perspectives to give voice to our frequently overlooked population. Here, we don't just scratch the surface, we dive deep, peeling back the layers of our experiences as well as heteronormative stereotypes. Let's get into this week's episode.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Just Draws podcast. I'm Jeff.
I'm your boy DMC.
All right. And you'll notice today we are having a special episode.
Yeah.
So we're actually coming from the same room this time.
Exactly.
Not some fictional place that I just came up with out of the air.
Exactly.
But yeah, we're in the same room. So yeah, this is a very special episode because it's the first time we've recorded in person.
Mm-hmm.
So looking forward to the outcome of that today.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We'll see.
All
We've
right.
had an interesting morning so far.
Yeah, we've had an interesting morning, but we'll get into that maybe another episode.
Right, yeah. Let's do that. Yeah.
All right, cool beans. So I'm going to toss it off to Darius today because he's going to be leading this topic.
Yeah, so we were talking as we were kind of coming up with some topics and everything, and one of the things that we talked about was this idea of like interracial dating.
Right.
And so I think that it's going to be interesting for us to have a conversation because I don't know a whole lot about your history with interracial dating, and I don't know if you know a whole lot about mine either, but I think that we'll have an opportunity to just kind of create some dialogue for us and for our listeners, and we can talk about the complexities and things of that nature. So one of the things I want to ask, or we can kind of get into, is this idea of, have you ever dated someone outside of your race?
So date...
Okay.
As far as a relationship, no.
Okay.
Gone out on dates, yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, I haven't made it to the point where, we're talking or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of casual dates that didn't really lead to anything. But, yeah, I've been on a couple of dates, but no relationship. So
what attracted you to them when you went on that date?
I can't say it's... Physically, I was attracted to them. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to say that there's one specific thing about the guys. Mm-hmm. So, for example, there's this Asian guy I went out on a date with. Mm-hmm. And, he fit the bill, was the right size, right build, had, the looks. People say, hey, you look Asian, this or that. So, it wasn't right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So it wasn't anything that... I could say specifically about him, but just our interaction on, I believe it was Grindr. Mm-hmm. And this was a couple of years ago, so my memory's a little foggy. But I remember just our text exchange went pretty well. Mm-hmm. Ended up going to actual texting and talking on the phone. And then made the decision a couple of days later to meet up at a restaurant. I was working not too far from where the restaurant was. So it was like, all right, cool. Let's do this. So, pretty much was it. It just kind of seemed like we had a connection. I didn't have any expectations of where it was going to go. It wasn't like a hookup or anything like that. It was just kind of like, let's meet, eat, chat, have some Thai food, and just see what's up.
Okay. It went well, though? The date went well?
I thought the date went pretty well. Okay. It didn't lead to a second date, but, it is what it is.
Okay. I have dated outside of my race as well, and I have... It's only been dates. And so, I've wanted it to go a little bit further than that, or farther than that, I should say. But there were always like situations and there were always circumstances that prevented that. There were some instances where clearly the other party was not ready to move forward. And then there was one specific instance where I wasn't ready to move forward with anything because I was dating. So, you and I have had the conversation about dating, and until you add the adjective exclusively on it, I just kind of feeling out, getting to know people, seeing what sorts of vibes and stuff like that exist. And so for me, with that specific person, there was somebody else that was in my life right at the time that I really was feeling a lot more, but I was still kind of going on dates. And so at the end of that date, where it would have been the perfect opportunity to, kind of like say, hey, I'm really into you, etc. I didn't advance in that way. So, like sometimes you may have a closeout kiss or, a hug or something like that. And I didn't do that. And the other person was looking for that. And so I'm sure that that person felt rejected in that moment, but that's not what I meant for that, for it to happen.
Right.
I just was like, okay, I need to kind of be true to this. So I don't want to send the wrong signal. And so I still tried to communicate with that person, but they never reached back out. They never answered my messages, none of that stuff. So I felt bad about the fact that, again, I wanted to at least try to get to know them a little bit because I wasn't sure if this other thing was going to work. But again, we were kind of far along, and I was like, all right, let me not send these mixed signals. But again, it didn't work out with me and the other person. And so I really did hate that I didn't just kind of stay in that space. I started leaning into the space of I need to stay true to this one person
Yeah.
kind of thing. And so that didn't serve me well in that. You talked about dating an Asian guy. Do you feel like if you had continued with that person that there would have been like any language or cultural barriers that you would have had to encounter?
Not language, but I mean, definitely cultural because we just would have came from different spaces. I mean, he was American, so it wasn't
Okay.
like he was,
Shang-Chi
yeah.
and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Oh gosh, no, nothing like that. I think when you're dating anyone that's not of your cultural background, there's going to be some type of hoops that you're going to both have to learn about each other because no matter what, if we're not used to a certain culture, we all are going to have some preconceived notions and stereotypes.
Yeah.
And there's going to be teachable moments on both ends for that because if I were to had continued dating that person, that guy, it would have been, they would have had to educate me on their interactions with the majority culture.
Yeah.
I would have had to done the same thing on my end and how we kind of see those things differently. And there probably would have been times where I would imagine I was misunderstood and vice versa. But I believe going into that, I would have to give that person and they would have had to give me some grace.
Yeah.
And when there's situations where I could have done a misstep and vice versa. But I think also being aware of that now, I would have taken, a little bit more time to make sure that I was doing the right things. And I'm in a space now where I know I'd be able to better communicate any type of, maybe I want to make sure that, he's not misconstruing what I'm saying.
Right.
I want to make sure that I'm not overstepping a boundary
Right.
or I'm not touching anything sensitive,
Right.
So I think I would have navigated it more so with a lot more caution and giving myself and him more grace just because I know we would be coming from different backgrounds.
Yeah. Do you think that? Okay, you kind of answered that. So let's say again, or in your dates of people, did you ever introduce those dates to any of your friends or family?
I mean, it never got to that point.
Okay.
Yeah. So, it was just kind of like we went on a date and that was kind of it, or it was just a hookup. So it wasn't like if they'd gone to date 2, would have been different. Because then I could have maybe been like, okay, well, maybe there's going to be a date 3. But, if I'm only going to go out one time, it's been like, all right, it was an experience and just kind of like move forward. Because in the case of this particular guy, like I thought we kind of did have a little bit of a connection because, I have 1,000 pairs of glasses and he had the same frames that I had because he wore them when we went on the date. I was like, oh, cool. I got those. So once I got home, I found those same frames, took a photo, sent it to him. Haha, GG, whatever. And, we thought that was a cute little exchange or whatever. And then like after that, I didn't really hear from him again. So, and again, I thought the date went well, but, I thought that would have been like a point of bonding for us, just having that same thing. Because, sometimes I hardly ever see people with the same pair or same frames that I have. So to me, I thought that was pretty cool. But, I mean, you can't base a relationship on having the same frame of glasses.
Yeah, that's true.
So in your situation with the guy that you were talking about earlier, what race was that person?
He was white.
Okay, he was white.
I've dated white. I've gone on dates with Asian, and then I've gone on dates with people who were like racially ambiguous. So it's like they may be white, and actually and I said this, I don't mind dating outside of my race, but I think that the thing for me is I want to date somebody that has swag.
Okay.
And so swag to me is where, like, I don't know, I can't really describe swag, you know. Like it's difficult. It's just a feeling, it's a vibe that they have. And everybody that I've dated has a very similar swag. And so he did too. The Caucasian and white guys actually I've dated. There's another guy that I was actually very interested in, who was just a black guy in a white body. Like literally, like if you talk to him on the phone, he has the same kind of richness or the same kind of timbre, or you know, if I had to put a color to it, the same kind of brown in his voice that
Okay.
a lot of blacks do.
Right.
So
Right. You could tell that he's grown up around black folks.
Okay, yeah. And I asked him that. I said, you are like you seem to be in touch with, and all of his friends were black, you know. And he said, he even said to me when we had gone out one time, he said, I really need to get some white friends because I hang around black people all the time. And so he was really cool, and he said he grew up in New York. And so he said that I grew up in New York, and that was all that was, you know, around.
him.
And so I kind of was indoctrinated and welcomed into those spaces. And so it was really interesting to hear that, because he's, you know, an adult now, and he still kind of is in that space. But the other guy that I had the story about, he did look a little racially ambiguous, because he was a white guy, but he had very full lips. And I was like, okay, maybe that was what I don't know what attracted me to him, but
Okay.
you know, it's just, it's a thing for me. Like there's different things that attract me in different people. And so he was very attractive to me. And so, that was kind of what got us in the door.
Okay.
And then he left from there. Go back to your question again.
So I was going to ask you, when you, in both of these cases, were those guys, did they exclusively date black guys, or did they date across the rainbow?
So I don't know. I know that the one who I just mentioned, who was, like I said, a black guy in a white body,
The New York guy.
he only dated blacks, from what I understood, or from what all of his exes were black. The other guy, I don't think we got to that point where I kind of talked about his exes or anything like that. And but it seems like most of the guys who are not black that I date tend to date white guys. Excuse me, black guys. They only date black guys. So
Yeah. Okay. Because I have a little bit of an issue with that.
Okay.
Because I kind of feel like if you are any race and you only date a particular race, that seems like there's an issue.
Okay.
Because I kind of feel like you're fetishizing the other people, or the race that you only exclusively date.
Well, what about preference, though?
I mean, you can prefer things, and then you can also be open to other things. That's what preference is. But that's where we're getting into where things become exclusively dating black or exclusively dating white, when you're not either white or black or Asian or Latin. Because to me, it feels like, oh, if I was a white guy and I only dated Asian guys, and all the Asian guys that I dated were fair, more feminine, you know, lady boy type, whatever, then I would feel like, oh, well, he only likes that because he wants that certain aesthetic. He wants that fair, feminine type of dude that just kind of like turns into that lady role more so than anything else. And I kind of feel like when I see white guys doing that, when it comes to them only dating black guys, that, oh, I just want to have the BBC. Yeah. And I wouldn't want to be anybody's just object in that way. And I know there's guys that like to be the token of the group, and that's fine for them. And it could be too that, you know, like we just heard on the podcast the other day or last night, where the guy was saying, you know, we was talking about Todrick Hall and how, you know, how he grew up, and, you know, he got into the school that had the most majority white guys and white people, and he got into the arts, and he felt like Black people were pushing him away.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why he doesn't really date or, employ Black people, is because he was only allegedly, accepted by white guys, and that culture accepted him for who he was, and he felt like Black people were pushing him away, and so he just went with where the love was. And I get that. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense to me.
So I hear everything you're saying. I just don't. Sometimes we tend to lean in the direction of when we see other people from other races dating exclusively within a specific race, that it's fetishizing that race.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that you are saying that, but I think that's a go-to. We use that as a go-to, like, well, I don't want to be fetishized, so I don't want to date outside of my race because I don't want to be fetishized by this other race. But I don't immediately go there. The first thing I do is I meet that person where they are. So I'm finding out who you are right now, and if there's even sort of any vibe, period, on a human to human sort of situation.
Yeah.
But then after that, I kind of do some digging, and I go, okay, well, who were your past exes, et cetera, et cetera. And then I might ask that question. Like I did ask the New York guy, I asked him the question about, I said, well, do you pretty much only date Blacks? And he was like, that's just been what it has been. That's all I have been really attracted to. And not that he was attracted to them necessarily sexually, but aesthetically, that's what he was attracted to. So I was like, okay. And because again, he grew up around that. And so, but then there are other people that I have talked to and have engaged with that might be on that fetishism a little bit more than others.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it never really got to that point for me to be able to say, okay, this is, you're fetishizing this, fetishizing me, fetishizing my people, et cetera. So I don't know if that's a thing or not, but
Because we're not a monolith.
because we're not a fucking monolith. And I'm so sick of hearing that, as I have said plenty of times. So let's stop saying that, everybody. All right. So do you feel like there's since we're talking about how we interact with people of other races and this idea of being fetishized, do you feel like other societal perceptions and pressures keep you from dating outside of your race?
No, because I like who and what I'm going to like, regardless.
I like what I like.
Yeah, I like what I like. and again, I didn't have a problem, dating or going on the date with the white guy or the Asian guy or whatever that I've done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that, things just did not get to that point. And it could have been because of a cultural thing.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I don't really care what other people have to say, whoever's going to be on my arm, because at the end of the day, it's my relationship. It's going to be our relationship. It's going to be bespoke between the two of us and where we were at that time.
Love that word.
I love it. It's
God,
great.
you love that word. Go ahead.
Because it's basically going to be our customized relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really care if another person has anything to say about it, because in our household, in our relationship, in our box, we're happy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all that really matters. I have no problem, dating outside of my race. It's just that, again, it kind of goes to, where's that something that I was actually looking for at the time? And the last relationships that I've entered, I wasn't really looking for anything. I wasn't on the app trying to find anyone. I just kind of stumbled into something with these guys, and it ended up being like, oh, I guess we're dating now, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And that's been it. But I've never had that experience with people that are not Black.
Okay.
And I've also, and this is also cultural, is that, you just mentioned the guy from New York.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that I tend to have better relationships with guys that are from the South versus Northerners or even West Coasters.
Have you interrogated why that is, though?
I think it's just because of growing up. I think there's a lot more being used to how people in the South date and operate, and culturally how we move, versus when I've tried to talk to guys who are from the West Coast, to try to talk to the guys from up north, it just kind of seems like there was a disconnect there, and just how we kind of go about things, even just being a Southerner, and so how you walk down the street and everyone's saying, hey, and hey, how you doing? And I don't even know you from anyone, but
Hmm.
people still will talk to you. And up north, yeah, people don't do that. You know.
Not as much, but I get it pretty frequently when I in New York.
Mm,
Like there are people who will speak to me. Now, there are some people who have some mental health challenges too, so I'm guessing that's some of that. But I do get some of that from up north as well. But I understand where you're
mm,
saying what you're saying because I'm from the South too, so I understand exactly where what you're saying there. I think that I think that some of those societal pressures and even some of the pressures that we get from our family and friends tend to push us in the direction of only dating within our race. Now, there's some historical things behind it too
mm.
that, our parents and grandparents and, aunts and uncles and everything may have taught us that, okay, look, you need to make sure that you stay with, or
Right.
that you push up our race, and stay within that, So I've gotten a lot of that too. Like there used to be that old saying about if you can't use a comb, don't bring it home. Like that mess, So like that sort of thing. I get it. I get a lot of that, but at the same time, and the historical, because there is stuff that's ingrained in our cellular, membrane, to quote Ian Van Zant, but there's some things that are in our membrane that are passed down from like slavery and what our ancestors had to go through, so it puts us on edge when we're in those spaces that are not us. And so I get that, but I feel like a lot of that is coming from societal pressures
Mm,
that you need to stay within your own race, kind of thing. Because even if we, as you brought up Taja Call,
yeah.
as we look at him and like RuPaul and Billy Porter and Don Lemon,
Mm.
and even
Lee
Sean T,
Daniels,
Lee
Shauna T.
Daniels, all of those people, like the initial thing that we do is we tend to look at them and side eye, like, oh, here we go, somebody else with somebody else white.
Yeah.
But
Another successful black man
another
not
successful black man,
choosing, and
right?
that because
Not
it's not
choosing
exclusive
us.
to gays.
No, it's not. No, period. Yeah, because definitely, because women will absolutely go, oh God, here you go.
Hmm.
You are, with a white woman or whatever. So, and why you don't want to stay with us,
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
thing. So that's always difficult, and it's tough because even on apps you see that people are like, okay, no, I'm not interested in anybody other than somebody black,
Right.
or et cetera. I get self-preservation, but I also get happiness.
Oh, definitely.
And so I'm kind of torn between that, even though my preference would be black, but I don't discriminate against that, and I don't go, okay, well, I'm just completely not dealing with anything other than black,
Yeah,
so,
because it kind of
or black
like,
adjacent.
but yeah, because and for the record, like my family has had white, Asian, I mean, like Latin in our family too,
Hmm.
married into. So it's kind of like that wouldn't have been an issue for me if I brought that home to my mom and my folks,
Hmm.
because we're used to that in our
Okay.
family. Like
Okay.
when I say my extended family, cousins and all that stuff.
Hmm.
So that would not have been anything,
Okay.
as far as that goes. So I would not have felt any type of pressure,
Hmm.
that
Okay.
way.
Okay then. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. Um, do you when would we or you think that race would be something that you need to discuss within a relationship? Now, other than seeing it, like when do you think it should be discussed?
Are you talking about if I was going to be dating someone
Mm,
non-black?
mm-hmm.
Uh, I mean, it's definitely going to be the elephant in the room,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like if you get to the point where it's going to be serious,
Mm-hmm.
um, you probably want to have that talk once you know that, hey, this guy could be the one. But at the same time, I feel like even before you get to that point, there may be like an interaction where, you know, he may ask, well, why do you do this? Well, I never thought about it like that type of deal, because it could be something like, why do you make sure that, you're always dressed a certain way?
Mm-hmm.
Or you
Or
know,
why do you put lotion on?
why you put lotion on? It could be that. Why do you use a washcloth?
Right. Yeah. Why do you? Because
You
that's
know,
a big one. Yeah.
that's a big
Like, yeah.
one.
Why do you use a wash?
Why do you use a
Why do
washcloth?
you not?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It could be, things like that, as a trying to understand another person's culture and where they come from,
Mm-hmm.
as a black person, these are the struggles that I have to deal with. As a black person, I ought to make sure when I go to this job interview that I'm dressed like this. I have to make sure that I do these achievements. I've got to make sure that everything is letter perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is, spot on and beyond that, because I got to make sure that I'm presenting the best version of myself in order to get this job.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to make sure that I'm doing the best that I can to educate myself so that I can get that promotion at this job, or, try to do any type of success as far as entrepreneurship, that's independent of being under a corporate umbrella. We just always have to do twice the work to get half as much.
Right.
And, that's just how we are.
Mm-hmm.
When we're trying to be successful, navigating, the majority culture society.
Mm-hmm. I agree with a lot of that. But I'm the type of person too that I want to talk about a lot of things early on anyway. So not only would I want to talk about race, but I want to talk about where things are potentially going. I want to talk about what the future kind of looks like as far as your career. I want to talk about if we're going to stay in the same area, if we're not necessarily, there. Like I like to kind of have those conversations early on, not maybe like first date, but definitely early on. I like to have some of those conversations and make sure that we're on the same page, because I don't want to get down the road and that be a reason for us to part ways because we hadn't had the conversation and you thought one thing and I thought something else, and then we don't even come to a compromise. We don't even come to the table to compromise to say, well, this is what I thought, this is what I thought, and then go, all right, well, how do we move past that? Because the emotions are already there. Everything is already kind of put out there, and then, you end up not being with a potentially good person from, as a result of that. So,
But I feel like it should be more than one conversation, though.
no, yeah, true.
So, because you're going to talk about one thing one day, get to a point, and then you're probably going to be like, okay, this has gone on for a while. I'm kind of dragging the room down. So another incident will come or happen, and you'll need to talk about it again or talk about something else. So I don't think that it's going to be just solved in one night or 1 hour of conversation. It's going to be a constant communication, because it's never going to go away in that relationship between those two people. And so it's going to be something that you're always going to be talking about.
Okay.
But I mean, never having made it past date one with someone, it's hard for me to kind of, other than talk about how I would approach this in a theory type of deal, I can't say exactly how I would approach it. So, like, I only think that we're having this conversation now, and if I ever end up in a relationship with someone that's non-black, that, I'd go back to this moment and this discussion between the two of us and kind of like take tidbits from this conversation and try to apply that.
Yeah. I wonder, it always bothers me. No, it doesn't bother me. I can understand it, but I always think about why society still has such an issue with race. But I definitely correct myself in that, because I understand why we have issues with it. But I'm wondering too if we're ever going to be able to come out of those issues that we have, or those preconceived kind of notions about other races, and even the stereotypes sometimes, because we're highly stereotyped. But are we going to be able to kind of come out of that? That's always been a question of mine, if we're ever going to be able to move past it.
As a culture,
Yeah.
I think because how this country, America, race has been such a divisive topic that I don't think it's something that we'll ever be able to kind of escape. Until we get to that thousands of years in the future where this
We're all dead.
we're all dead, but there's this omni race where it's been a mixture of everything. I don't think that would ever happen, but they always say that that's eventually what we're going to get to. But it would never happen just because of the way we got people here that they won't even adopt a dog that's not a purebred whatever.
Yeah.
So I know that humans would never get to that point, but if we were, I still think that because of the way our society and how history has gone, we're always going to have cultural differences, because the major things that separate us as, ethnicity and race has always been something based around language, art, food, different things that we
Religion or spirituality.
spirituality, all of those things, thoughts and beliefs, belief systems, all of that kind of plays into making us different, which is good that we're not a monolith as we're not a monolith as humans. We all have different divisions as we've been across this globe and been in different countries. So, each country is going to have its own history, its own path that is followed, and I don't think that we're ever going to get to a point where homogenized.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that, and there are times where I feel the exact same way. Like, okay, this is definitely not going to happen in my lifetime, and it might not happen. And if I ever have any kids, it may not happen in their lifetime. But I even want us to just be together, like within the culture, for us to understand or have like very similar values and beliefs in that, and then that be something that we can have a conversation about and be able to move the whatever needle it's going to be, whether it's the needle of not looking, needle of racism, I'll say it like that, or the needle of misogyny, moving something. I don't know exactly, what that needle it is at whatever given time, but I'd love for us to be able to move past that and be able to have conversations that are a lot more fruitful and a lot more intelligent about why we feel the way we feel, other than I was taught that, or if you've had an experience, that's different. But if you're just kind of like, I don't like this because my parents don't like this, or I don't like this because I was told not to like this,
right.
It'd be nice if we were able to do that. But well,
I wanted to go back to something that I just thought about, because I had a conversation with someone, or I had overheard someone talking, and they had mentioned that, and this is a black guy, and he said that if he knew a dude that had only dated white guys before he was black, that he would not want to date that guy because he's dated white dudes before. And there's like this, I guess, misconception that that's all that guy was into before. So why would he be into be as a black person? You've only dated white guys before, so what you doing over here? Why are you coming back home? Type of deal. And I don't see that would be an issue for me, because I wouldn't care. Like, your dating history is your dating history, your body count is your body count. None of that matters to me. All that matters to me is what we're doing right now in the present. So I wouldn't dismiss someone just because of that, because everyone's got different views. They come from different places, and I don't think it's fair to just kind of like blacklist someone, so to speak, because they've dated outside of their race once or twice. Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. I agree. I never go into a situation with that. I try not to go into a situation with preconceived notions until I start to see things or I start to hear things, and then I go, okay, this is a little bit different here, so I need to kind of figure out what this is, or I need to ask. I ask a million questions, so I'm just gonna ask. I'm gonna come out and find out what it is, what you meant by this, or when you've dated this person, how did this show up, etc. So I'm always very conscious of that.
Okay.
So, for me, but well, thanks for indulging the topic of interracial dating. It was crazy because we haven't really talked about, as long as we've known each other, we haven't really talked a lot about our experiences outside of our race. I know your exes, some of mine, so, but it's been like, okay, well, I wonder if he's ever dated in this realm and whatnot. And a lot of the questions that I had were more so geared towards if you had actually been in some sort of relationship or had already, kind of established something with somebody, but neither, both of us are on the same page with that we've only had dates and it never, really materialized to anything. But maybe hopefully the viewers or the listeners will be able to kind of come in the comments and say, all right, hey, I've had this situation and here's what I think, and be able to kind of chime in, and we can continue the conversation there though. So
definitely.
appreciate y'all. Yep. Thank y'all for listening to this episode, and we hope that again you will like and share and subscribe to our podcast, and come in our comments and talk to us about this. If there's something that we might have missed or something that we didn't necessarily expound on in this specific episode, hey, there's always room for us to continue the conversation in the comments.
Yeah, and you can disagree with us as well.
Please do. Yeah, because we're not a monolith.
We're not a monolith.
And so also, if you want to use this podcast as a drinking game, anytime we say monolith, take a shot.
Oh, gosh.
Thank y'all for listening. I'm DMC.
I'm Jeff.
And we'll catch y'all next time.
All right. Peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Now be sure to like, share, and follow us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, and Spotify at Just Draws. That's JUSTDRAWZ. Until next time,